almost 11 months ahead of time, is that going to be worth it come, race day? And you learn a lot about yourself. Race day really becomes a celebration of the the culmination of all your training. So it's just this big celebration. There's all sorts of adrenaline. As tired as I was, as hectic as that day was, it was a really neat experience. I'd never been to New York. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd want to live in New York for my entire life or anything like that. But I really liked, visiting there. It was really cool. And the energy around that marathon is insane. There's something like 1 million people that are in that area during that time, and it's a powerful thing.
Welcome to the Approach Podcast. I'm Mike Quinlan, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to, once again, Jake Van Fleet, North Hills Country Club. Welcome, Jake.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
Of course. Happy you could make it. So you were on a couple of weeks ago. We spoke a little bit about architecture. Today we're going to move in a little bit different direction. But to start it off, since some of the people know you, and if they don't know you, they can go back and listen and learn a little bit more about you. But you have been a PGA pro since 2020, is that correct?
Sir, 2020.
So being a PGA pro, what did that do for your career and or your approach to the game of golf?
I think that I had a little bit different start in the industry than a lot of people that are in it. I never played golf growing up, so the PAT, the Playability Test, as a part of the PGA program and training, was a really big hurdle for me. So getting through the bookwork was very easy. I had just finished college. I kind of started that bookwork in college, and I just got out of college, so I was already in that mode of getting assignments done and stuff like that. But the hardest thing was the playing portion of it. So for me, that's really what it came down to, and it took me a little time after I finished my bookwork to knock that out. It was this big hurdle that I couldn't get over. And then I had kind of midway through, I had my first child, and that added even more pressure to it. So becoming a PGA member for me was all about like making this big jump into like, who am I going to be in the future? How am I going to support my family? And can I even do this? Kind of starting from scratch with no real background in competitive tournament golf. So my journey towards PGA membership, when I think back about it, was mostly defined by like progression into being a good enough player to qualify for bookwork and then pass the PAT. When I did pass in October of 2020, it was just this rush of emotion, this unbelievable weight that was lifted off. And the time that and it was just like this full circle moment for me where it was like, all right, well, I started here, and the first one I took, I wasn't even close, and now, I never had pressure on the day that I passed it. On the last hole, I could have taken a 17 and still passed my PAT. So there was really no pressure through the course of the day for me after the first hole. So jumping into becoming a PGA member a month later after passing was really cool. It was finally like, all right, I have this certification that I need. Now what can I do? And it was like I finally got the car to start, and here we go. So it was this springboard that helped me. That I stayed in my current role for one more year. Then a year after that, I took a head golf professional position, and I've been around a little bit, but lots happened since that. Since I passed my PAC and then became a PGA member. but none of it in this business would have been possible had I not become a PGA member.
Take a quick step back about something you were talking about, the PAT and the difficulty you had in passing that. Over the years, that PAT has become, I'm going to call it easier to pass. Whether or not it's easier to
Sure.
pass, the threshold has gotten a little bit easier. But what's your opinion about um, that idea that, you know, the PAT numbers are a little bit different than they used to be, where you can pass with a little bit higher score than you used to? Do you have any concerns about that? What do you think the importance is of that?
Um, I've gone back and forth on it a little bit. Uh, the industry, first off, we need good people to work in the golf industry. And so any decision that the PGA of America is making, I hope that's the driving force behind it. It has gotten easier. And I don't know if it's necessarily the numbers that make it, quote unquote easier. I think the thing that makes it easier is that you have multiple avenues in which you can pass it. You could play in a tournament in March of 2024 and then, shoot a qualifying score there or a passing score there. And then like a year later, I think it's a 2-year window. You could shoot another qualifying or another passing score and that would count as your PAT. So that's a little different. That's, I would probably say, a little less pressure. I think there's a lot more pressure when you're driving to middle of nowhere, Michigan at midnight, and then you got to take a PAT in the morning. You got your 2 passing scores at some random golf course after staying a night in a sketchy hotel. Like you maybe lose some of the good stories from it. I can think of like some random late night White Castle stops I had with one of my good friends that would come and caddy for me. Um, but ultimately, I don't have an issue with it, especially as someone who really had to cut my teeth to pass it. I just care that we get good people working in the industry. So if that is felt to be like it's going to help the workforce, I think it's a good move. And all the other stuff is minor.
And with the workforce stuff, you've had some pretty good roles at some pretty cool
Sure.
clubs. And you were assistant at Shaniqua, where you won Wisconsin Assistant of the Year. You have been an assistant at Westmore. We worked together at Westmore. And then you've also been an assistant at Skokie, along other stuff. But we'll just bring those ones up for the time. But over those years, what are some of the best lessons that you've taken from some of those positions that you had, or anything that kind of steered to where you're at right now?
All of them, would have revolved around like one thing, and it was relationship generating experience. Everywhere that I have been, that has been a huge focal point by the person that I'm working for. So if you think back to your time with Vince and my time with Bill and then my time with Gideon, um, everything was about like how do we maintain our relationship, build our relationship, earn trust amongst the membership, and then use that to get them to buy into the experience that we're selling. So now working together again at North Hills, we care very much about what that is. Every single day, we are trying to further strengthen the relationships that we have. And that was pretty well received. You could attest to that. But that was the big focus. It was a big thing I took from all 3 of those work experience, and those would be my 3 most impactful as in my journey as a golf professional. So getting into my first real head professional job, that's the thing that I've been focused on the entire time is how can we build relationships, especially since we're starting out as a pretty brand new staff. And then how can we, use those relationships to further enhance our experience.
So when you're hiring people, is that what you're looking at for hiring? How would you go about hiring people now?
Um, in Wisconsin and Milwaukee, I really think my approach to hiring may be a little bit different than others. I am looking solely on, I'm looking solely for people with the right temperament, and the ability to, form a relationship and show that they've done that in current roles. I don't necessarily care if they have the most golf experience in the world. Um, yeah, I'd almost, I wouldn't say I would prefer them to be, quote greener, but um, I care very much about who the person is because all the other skills are able to be taught, and I think that I'm a perfect example of that. You can teach someone to be a better golfer, you can teach someone to be a better teacher, you can teach somebody to merchandise and run Golf Genius and all that stuff, but you can't necessarily teach them um, to care about their work. You can't necessarily teach them um, to uh, dress. You can teach them to dress professionally, but some of that stuff is falls on the person, and their teacher can only do so much. So I'm really looking at who am I hiring, and are they teachable, versus all right, how much golf experience do they have?
Yeah. Recently, you have been telling me that you started running again,
Mhm.
training some more.
Yep.
You ran the New York City Marathon. What was that, last year?
2 years ago. Yeah, they're 20. Yeah, last 23.
23. Um, and you ran that for PGA REACH. Can you talk a little bit
Or
about that experience? And for those that are not familiar, PGA REACH is the charitable arm of the PGA of America, correct?
yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
they they have a lot of different things that they do. They're working with youth and military professionals and a lot of other things, but it's the charity wing of the PGA of America. Can you talk a little bit about your running the marathon and then a little bit with involvement with PGA REACH?
Um, first marathon that I ever trained for, or I should say ran. I trained for the Milwaukee Marathon during 2020, and it was canceled for COVID. So my first marathon that I completed was it's one of the 6 world majors. That was a unbelievable experience in myself, and it probably ruined marathon running for me. Beyond that, it would be really tough to run a marathon where there's not where the streets aren't lined 10 people deep cheering you on and handing you beers and cigarettes and candy and stuff like that along the way. New York City Marathon is a really cool experience. I started running again hoping that I can get selected to be a part of that PGA REACH team for 2025. Um, but it was awesome. From a training standpoint, it's probably a minimum, if you're out of shape like I was at the time, it's probably a minimum 4 months of training. And there's a lot of interpersonal stuff going on throughout that training. It's similar to golf. It's just you. You control your own destiny. You are going to get exactly out of it what you put into it. And I think during my training, and I'm sure all experienced marathoners would testify to this, you come to the realization that it doesn't really matter what I run. Sure, you may have some goals, but the point of doing this is to show yourself that you can do it, because it is a tough task. And the training is all about preparing your body for that task. So you're sitting here for, I'm not sitting, you're running for, a minimum of 4 months leading up to this major event, thinking like, all right, can I do this? Am I going to be able to do this? And then as your training progresses and you start proving to yourself, oh, I can, there are times in your training where you're running, 18, 20, 24 miles, leading up to this event. And you're like, oh, the first time person, I've never done that before. Can I even do that? Will my body let me do that? And so the confidence just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you really start to realize like, oh, this is the actual fun part. The race is going to be fun because I know that I put all the work in, but the hard part is, it's really cold out. It's December. And I'm, starting to train again and going for runs, like I'm saying like, all right, I've got this goal later on, is this mile that I'm running here in December, almost 11 months ahead of time, is that going to be worth it come, race day? And you learn a lot about yourself. Race day really becomes a celebration of the the culmination of all your training. So it's just this big celebration. There's all sorts of adrenaline. As tired as I was, as hectic as the day was, it was a really neat experience. I'd never been to New York. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd want to live in New York for my entire life or anything like that. But I really liked, visiting there. It was really cool. And the energy around that marathon is insane. There's something like 1 million people that are in that area during that time, and it's a powerful thing. And then there's all these people running for different causes, and there's some very inspiring stories. And some of the people that you meet just at the hotels, they run 6 marathons a year, or they're on a 100th marathon, and it's just, wow, holy cow, this is the real deal here. So then to get to be a part of so that was just my individual experience, and how cool New York was, and how neat my my training experience ended up being. As a team, that was the best. That was the best part. We had Zoom calls monthly where team members. It was 17 PGA professionals from across the country, and that team experience for this marathon was really neat too. So, we're all in season, working in golf, finding time to train on the side of all our other personal responsibilities. And then we meet once a month via Zoom and talk about our experiences, talk about what's going on, talk about fundraising for the PGA REACH program. And it was just neat to feel connected to a bunch of different people that I really had met, and get to talk through side by side everything that we were working on during that time. So PGA REACH was PGA REACH, like you touched on, is the charitable arm of the PGA of America. It has 3 main programs: PGA Junior League, which all PGA members are going to know of. PGA WORKS, which is the it's like the internship program, and then PGA HOPE, which is veteran outreach. And all 3 really cool. All 3 very impactful in their own ways. But getting to be a part of that team and help put the messaging forward for it was a neat thing to be a part of.
So with that PGA REACH thing that you worked with, were there any professional or personal takeaways that you got from that kind of influenced your thinking or anything like that really stand out to you?
It not as much to, like, I don't want to say not as much. Those 3 programs are extremely impactful. That was really my first taste of truly being involved with any of that stuff. Now, with that, I will say I feel this greater passion to get more involved with the PGA HOPE stuff and Junior League and WORKS as well. But that was really like my first experience into doing something impactful for any of those programs. What was neat and what kind of sparked that fire is to see some of these guys that have, were on the ground level of the first PGA REACH team at the marathon, and they've raised X money over, however many years they've been doing this. It was neat to see that impact. So I'd love to be a part of that team going forward if I'm able to, because it's like a raffle system. But if not, and even if I do, I will do what I can to get more involved with the 3 major programs that REACH.
Have you done anything else yet, or was that your number one thing? Have you looked in? I'm looking into the HOPE program, I want to do that. I went on an honor flight with my dad before he passed, and that was probably the most life-changing thing that I've ever done. So I'm really looking forward to this spring training for the PGA HOPE thing and getting certified for that. Um,
I'd like to join that as well. That's maybe the first thing on my list. I think we have an event at North Hills, our military outing, where I think we have some um we have the ability to have some great impact with clinics and stuff like that through that day. So that's where I'll join you in spring. That's where I would see myself first starting. I've helped with PGA Junior League. I haven't really been involved much with Works. Um, but Hope is the one that really gets me going. As you know, we have some family members that are military and have struggled with uh, effects from their time served. So it's a really the Hope a really neat program, and that's certainly something I'd like to be more involved in.
um, what are your thoughts on the PGA's pushing out this idea of PGA REACH and PGA HOPE? Do you feel as though they could push it out a little bit more? I'm not sure if you're not in the PGA that you know a whole lot about it. Do you think it's something that they could push out a little bit more, something that could be publicized a little bit stronger? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Always. I think that will always be the case. And that was the marathon is about raising money, and that's really important, but it's really about the story and the exposure. So the PGA has this opportunity through the New York City Marathon because it's a 501c3 charity. So the part of their mission for running the marathon is to draw exposure to that. Additionally, I'm sure there are other ways too, but yeah, I mean, it's three great programs. I'd love to see more out of it, but I'm sure in time that'll keep progressing. I can't imagine that you'd go less exposure on any of those three programs. PGA Junior League, they get on TV now for the finals. PGA WORKS, I think they had Paul Millsap, former NBA player, had his own scholarship fund through that. So they're trying, but I think you're right. Like, golf's tough because it's such a, I don't say sheltered market, but it's such a specific thing. So if you're not a part of that world, you wouldn't really be looking for it, even though it's a great story.
Sure. So on top of that, so leading into the next one here, what advice would you have for other professionals who want to get involved? Where do they need to reach out, and what are your thoughts on what they need to do to be more involved?
So I would say that everyone that can should be involved in their section. We need good people to run our section and keep running our section. It's kind of a duty that we all have to each other to help manage our organization. But then additionally, there are always I got that marathon opportunity through an email. There was a random email from the National PGA of America email, and it was just, hey, do you want to sign up? Anyone want to sign up for this marathon? So there's opportunities like that all the time. So I worked for people that were involved in the PGA, and that was a big motivator for me. I feel that urge to help as well. So it's understanding what our role is, understanding that, although I might not be the most passionate person about the PGA work that's out there, it's still kind of a duty that we all have to each other to keep managing that, keep bringing ideas, so that our organization can be as good as it can be.
Um, and just one last question here. If you could sum it up, how would you sum it up in one question or one sentence, just for a final thought for our listeners?
Um, I think that the work that we do every day, I like being a golf professional because I get to wear so many hats every single day. There's charity work, there's, work at my own club, there's, work helping fellow professionals. There's this network of people that we get to deal with every single day that we only have because of golf. So, um, if it's something that interests you, I think you can find quite a bit of avenues to scratch itches that you may have. It might be the things that interest me are going to be different than things that interest you, Mike. And I think I'm a perfect example of how many different avenues you can go explore, but then also, how many backgrounds that we can attract from, new golf professionals from. It really doesn't have to be these kids that have 15 years of playing experience or anything like that. It can be anyone that loves the service industry and loves the hospitality industry and just loves being around a golf course. And I think the outlook for our industry in that is, I think it's pretty bright. I think there's some good things happening from our national platform, but that are helping push, why certain aspects of our job are important, why people need to be taken care of, and then the industry has changed so much since I've gotten into it, since you've gotten into it, and the work arrangements I think have gotten significantly better. So it's nice to see that the platform that PGA America has nationally has helped press some important initiatives forward, taking care of the people that really make this industry go. The work that's been done there has been extremely helpful. So I have a very bright outlook on what the industry is going forward, because I feel like we're seeing more and more people that don't necessarily have the more traditional golf pro background get into the industry and have success in it. So exciting stuff. And it is certainly something that I look forward to seeing continue to grow.
Well, sir, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a conversation that talking about really cool programs that the PGA has out there that, in my opinion, aren't getting enough attention and aren't being put in front of people's faces quite enough. So thank you for coming on, discussing your experience with PGA REACH, and we look forward to next time. Anything else you want to leave the people before you go?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks again, and enjoy your holiday season, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Bye.